Hi there, folks. My name's David. I'm an alcoholic. It's May the 8th, 2020, and right smack dab in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about the man I was at one time, the man I am today, and what happened throughout the transition from one to the other. I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1994, and I got sober in 1997. And I spent the 3 years in between trying to perpetuate my right to drink. I had this feeling of entitlement, that I was entitled to drink, because I had done so for all my life, or most of my life up until that point. Uh, I, uh, I didn't drink as a young man because I felt different. I drank to be part of the crowd, it was the way of life in my university days, in my working days. I, um, I drank like everybody else did, and it didn't appear to me that there was anything different about my drinking than those around me. So that would carry on for a number of years until, as I mentioned, 1994, and the period up until then, shortly before that, my drinking took on a career of its own. It, this is an insidious disease. Every day seems like the day before, and it's only looking back now that I can really understand how alcoholism creeps up on you, and I believe there's a genetic component to this. My mother was an alcoholic. I believe if you drink hard enough, long enough, that there's a pretty good chance that you can become an alcoholic. And I believe that's what happened to me. So, 1994, I didn't go to my first meeting because I wanted to. I went to my first meeting because of a conspiracy that was formed against me. The dance floor got smaller. Everybody was on to me. Family, friends, business associates. I was in a box. I was under observation. People were concerned. My friends would invite us over for dinner, and they would say, "We're not going to drink. We're going to have Perrier water. David, that'll help you." And David says, "Well, I'll show you." And David would drink before he went and when he got home. So there was no stopping me. I really felt an entitlement, and I wasn't criticizing or advising those around me on their drinking habits, and I resented them doing so. So, as I say, the heat was on, and I was coerced into going into a treatment program in Ottawa for a month in July of 1994. I went there not particularly willingly, but I was out of options. So I went to this treatment center and missed a month of the summer, resented it, but I believe in some fashion I tried to do what I was told and follow the program. We went to meetings and so on. When the month was up, my wife asked me when I was coming home, and I said I was belligerent, I was miserable, and I said, "I'll figure it out." And so I took the train home, and lo and behold, on the way home on the train, a little guy came down the aisle with a little cart, and he said, "Would you like something to drink?" And I said, "Yes, rum and Coke." And the strike was over. Poof, Alcoholics Anonymous was disappeared. I got home to my family and convinced them that I could modify my drinking, and fit in with society once again. My wife and my children knew nothing about alcoholism particularly, so they were reluctantly went along with it, and I would go into 2 more detox centers over the next 3 years, and it was, I would have periods of sobriety. I would go to AA meetings, but then I would get off track, and I'd pick up a drink, and I would instantly be back to the daily consumption, 24 hours a day, bottle under the bed, bottle somewhere. And that's what life was like. So the 1997, people have asked me, well, what was different about 1997? And I really I couldn't answer that at the time, but I believe that in retrospect, God had decided that perhaps David had had his last drink. And, I tell people, I like to say that the obsession has not left me. The obsession resides within me. I'm in remission. The obsession is sleeping. If I pick up a drink, I will go back to thinking about alcohol, craving alcohol, and so that's why we have this expression, one drink, one drunk. And so in 1997, I embarked on a program of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings on a regular basis. I live up in Caledon. I go to meetings in Erin, Orangeville, Grand Valley, Dundalk. I have a circuit, Caledon Village. I describe myself as the horse that used to pull the milk wagons back 50, 60, 70 years ago. The horse knew all the stops, and the milkman had to just jump on and off and deliver the milk. So it became a habit, it became a ritual, it became a program for me to go to these meetings, and that's where I belonged pretty much each and every night of the week. And it served me well. It got me established in AA. I developed friendships, I developed relationships, I developed a sense of responsibility for those in the program, my fellow members, not only in my home group, but in the other groups that I attended. I looked forward to seeing them, they looked forward to seeing me, and I felt part of. Along the way, when for many years, the power greater than ourselves, this component of our program that is so important, I sort of took it for granted. I didn't pay a lot of attention to it. I wasn't adverse to the idea of a higher power or God, but I didn't put any effort into it particularly, other than the prayers that we say at each and every meeting. But over the course of several years, I watched people and got to know people. I saw people with a spiritual component to their lives. I saw people that got great comfort from that spiritual component in times of need and in times of crisis in their life. And I admired them. And a number of years back, I started to pray on a regular basis. It's become part of my life. I have a relationship with God that it's not that it wasn't there before, but God was always there for me. I just chose not to try to make him a part of my daily life. So in doing that, it's benefited me in so many ways. I look back 2.5 years ago that my wife passed away from a sudden stroke. An otherwise healthy woman, physically, exercise, diet, and everything. Within a period of about an hour and a half, it went from life, a normal life, to a discussion about organ donations. So this really, it really was, it was the end of a 50-year marriage. The thought of drinking never crossed my mind, but the oblivion that drinking provided crossed my mind. I could remember when I used to use alcohol to take me to another place that I didn't want to be where I was anymore. And so what I've learned in Alcoholics Anonymous, that we talk all the time about acceptance, accept the things we cannot change. And that came in handy, and gratitude. So I try to focus on being grateful for the 50 years of marriage, my 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and that's the only place to find comfort. There's no other avenue to change, adjust, rejig what happened, where I am now in terms of being a widower. So the Alcoholics Anonymous in the program has really been helpful in that respect. And The other things that I'm grateful for the program is I've introduced my family to Alcoholics Anonymous to the program. They've been to so many of my birthday meetings over the years, and they understand the program. They're not afraid of it. They know there's nothing to be afraid of. Nobody wants to come here voluntarily necessarily, or at least I didn't. And so I've introduced them to that. The spiritual component has been big and a very important part of my life of late, as I've described. And during this period of pandemic and isolation, you know, I up until now, I would go to 5 or 6 meetings a week. I had what I believe is a very strong foundation in the program. And I used to call this sort of a form of insurance, or in times when I couldn't go to meetings, my exposure over the years has been so thorough that I've felt it's carried me through periods when I couldn't go. And that's certainly helped me in this time in my life. I also am active in virtual meetings online with various groups. Not all the groups that I was able to go to, but enough that it keeps me, I can see their faces, I can hear their voices, I can remember the camaraderie we had when we were together in person, and that keeps me integrated into the program. I believe in my heart, if I quit going to Alcoholics Anonymous, there would be a point in my life somewhere, somehow, that I would drink. And so it's important that I maintain contact with my fellows in the program. I do that on the phone. There's one individual, I'm going to meet him in an hour or two. We sit in a parking lot at Tim Hortons in our cars, 6 feet apart, and we have a little chat. That keeps me in tune with Alcoholics Anonymous. I phone people, my sponsees, they phone me, we stay in touch. And I think of this pandemic, and it's the only answer to this is a vaccine, and there's no vaccine for the alcoholic that will rid us of the disease. It's only abstinence. But this herd immunity they talk about in the pandemic, that antibodies, and we can, as a population, can build up herd immunity against the disease. Well, we have sort of herd immunity in Alcoholics Anonymous, where our herd is our fellowship, and we support one another, and if we all do as we're told and stay the course, then we're able to stay sober, helping one another, and that to me is what it's all about. So that's my little story, folks. Thanks for listening. God bless.